Welcome to the Brady Marcs Podcast with your host Brady Yoshia from Brady Marcs Buyers Advisory. Enjoy discussions with a variety of guests and pioneers from diverse backgrounds, each sharing their unique perspectives on property, business, industry and more.
So Leanne, you were involved in buying Lang & Simmons. Could you please tell us the story behind that?
Yeah, sure. I started working at Lang & Simmons in 1995, and yes, I understand that a lot of people weren't even born then, so it's a really long time to be working somewhere. But something that I do with my corporate team every year is we write a letter to ourselves, and we write it in December to be read the following December, and we write it in a way that we're saying that we've achieved all of the things that we want to achieve. So it's kind of like a business plan by another name. And in 2019, I couldn't write that letter. And that was really unusual for me. I'm a very optimistic person. I've always had a really clear vision of the future and what the future looks like. And I just couldn't see the future. And I really thought long and hard about it. I've got a beautiful friend called Tanja Lee, who's a coach in the real estate space. And I rang her. I'd been offered another business opportunity. And I rang her and said, look, I'm really struggling with this decision, which is something I don't struggle with decisions very often. I don't usually have to ask for other people's advice or assistance. And anyway, I spoke to Tanj and I went right through this other opportunity. And at the end of the call, I just burst into tears, which is something that I never do. And I just went, you know what, I can't leave Lang & Simmons. I feel so responsible for the brand and the people within the brand. I can't leave. And so that being the case, what's next? And so I sat with that for a little bit, and then in the end, in my letter to myself, I wrote, it's December 2020 and Lang & Simmons has new owners. And so then I had to ring the CEO and say, I think you need to sell the brand. You need to go to the board and you need to get them to sell the brand. And so as luck would have it, it was good timing for them as well. And so that's what they did. And then the next problem was who to buy it, because it wasn't that I wanted to buy the brand myself at all. I just knew that it was time for these people to go and do other things and for us to have a new direction. And I was I was president at the REI at the time, and we were negotiating with a couple of really big brands to buy us, and I was on the phone with one of the CEOs of those brands, and he was shooting me. Oh, REI should do this. You as president should do that. And I got off the phone and just went, bugger that, I'm not working for him. I cannot work for him. I was 58 by that stage. I'm too old to work for somebody like that. And so it's like, now what? Now what do I do? And I had a couple of franchisees who had heard that the rumour that we might be on the market, because we hadn't told anybody at this stage. And so I rang them and they said, look, Lee, if you're prepared to have equity in the business, we're prepared to buy in with you. I'm thinking, 58, do I really need to buy a business at this stage in my life, in my career and all that? So anyway, I decided that I would go out and see all of my franchisees and have a conversation with them, which is a really risky thing to do, right? You don't kind of tell everybody there's a deal happening before the deal's happened,
No.
right? But I didn't want any of them to wake up tomorrow and find out that the brand had been sold to franchisees and they had no idea that it was happening. I just didn't want that. So I went and saw everybody, and to my shock, everyone kept on saying, wow, that's a great idea. Can we buy in? Can we buy in? Can we buy in? And in the end, I'm like, I don't have enough to sell. So some of the shareholders have only got really small shareholdings just by virtue of the fact that they were down the end of my list of people. Like I just saw them later than I saw some of the others. So that was kind of how it all came about. Crazy, right? But we bought it 1st of April in 2021. We settled.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, that tells you all you need to know about my sense of humour. We could have done it on the 31st, but it had to be on the 1st.
Buyer's agents are becoming more and more popular. Could you tell the listeners what is a buyer's agent? What does a buyer's agent do?
Buyer's agent really is the advocate for the buyer. It's been such a long time coming this side of the industry. I really think that buyers have to be represented properly in a property transaction. So otherwise it's very one-sided.
Yes. And it can be quite confusing for buyers.
100%. It's confusing. The property industry itself is a minefield even for experts sometimes. So I can't even imagine what it would be like doing it for someone that doesn't do it all day, every day.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier that the marketplace at the moment is quite a tough one for buyers.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of stock on the market.
No.
How do you overcome this with your clients? What's your advice? And sorry, I should also say, what is your advice to the listeners out there that are embarking on a purchasing journey?
I think so long your expectations are real and clear and you know it's not going to be easy, I think that makes a really big difference. And to do your homework, do your research, talk to agents, talk to buyers agents, talk to people in the industry so you don't feel completely alone in the journey. I bid at an auction for some clients a couple of weeks ago. There's 25 registered bidders. You know, those sort of numbers we haven't seen for years and years and years, even through COVID online when we were doing auctions. So, you know, there are so many buyers out there and the properties are just not there. It's somewhere between 30 and 50% down in stock levels.
Those are big numbers.
Huge. And we just have to get creative about creating opportunities out of nothing, whether we get local agents to letterbox for us, whether we are doing cold calls or working with agents in the whatever space we're looking in to kind of talk to people they're appraising as well. You know, maybe there's an off-market opportunity there. So it's about being really creative.
Yeah, very good point. So realistically, how long would it take a buyer to find a property in the current climate?
I would have said a couple of years ago when we first started it would have taken 6 to 8 weeks. But, you know, realistically it's 10 to 12 weeks without question. Buyers need to feel that they have seen enough property to be able to make a really good educated decision. And because there's so little stock on the market, that process is taking longer as well. So when they get to that point, they go, yes, this is the one for us. They know that they have seen everything that's possible on market, off market, or even pre-market, and then they're able to make a really good decision.
So they have to have realistic expectations.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the word off market. That word is mentioned a lot. Mm-hmm. What is a true off market and an off market property?
So an off-market property has become a bit of a buzzword in the industry. In my day, in your day, we used to call it a preview week, or we used to show the property prior to going on the internet for 1 week, or a VIP database listing. And there was a whole lot of different names we had. But a true off-market is really one that isn't even – it might be someone that an agent is appraising that is looking to not do photos, not do floor plans, not do any kind of advertising. The off-market that most people know about at the moment is the one that's sent out to 5,000 people on their databases. So it's not exclusive to you. So genuinely off-market property is one that we have exclusive access to, as opposed to something that's gone through a database of 5,000 people.
So there's a lot of agents in the real estate arena that are looking to potentially make the switch. What would your advice be to them if they wanted to become a buyer's agent?
Just be really clear on the path that it's going to take you. It's like any change of within an industry, even the change itself, there are going to be really tough times and it's hard to establish yourself. And it's really important to remember that if you are going to make that change from a selling agent, be kind to those around you as a selling agent because you'll need them on your way up on the buy side as well.
Absolutely. You never know what's around the corner.
That's right.
Could you tell us what your experience was with working with a buyer's agent and what you think about potential clients looking to, well, potential buyers, I should say, looking to use a buyer's agent?
Oh, look. Get ready for the gush, but I will temper it with my journey. So I loved working with a buyer's agent. And the reason why is because it was just such a relief. So when we first started looking, so my partner and myself, we were looking for a house around the late 2019 mark. And we were looking, and we, like everyone would probably think before they get an agent is they go, oh, I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. I can look on Domain and Real Estate. I can find these properties. I can rock up. then what happens is, like we've discussed, Brady, is buyer's fatigue, right? And it's so many aspects of it. So you've got when you're going every single Saturday, that weighs on you. When you're getting trumped by other bidders, you go in and you go, I'm going to bid up to 1.8, and then someone comes in and goes 1.9, and you go, I can go 1.91. And then you lose control. That causes buyer fatigue. When you constantly cannot find the right home, or you find yourself negotiating. All of this was happening. We were facing this. We were every Saturday. We were just exhausted. We were just like, I can't see one more bedroom. I can't, I can't see. And the other thing was, I can't see any more compromises. Like you look and you go, that one has no backyard, but the location is great. I think I can work with this. And then you realize you're bidding for something that you don't truly want. That's when we met this buyer's agent and we discussed with him what we were doing. And then we heard the price, right? And I know we've discussed this, is as most people do, they go, oh my gosh, I'm spending 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, whatever it is you're spending on a home, and you go, that fee on top. See, when it's reversed and you're selling, it doesn't matter because you go, I'm selling, I'm making money. The agent fee will wash into that. Whereas when you're buying, it's like you're getting hit twice. But we very soon realized it was completely worth every single dollar, because they were out there checking all the things, checking us. They were taking all the fatigue away. And they secured this house. We were at a wedding. We weren't even at the auction, and they secured it. And I remember we were waiting, like getting changed, ready for this wedding. And we were like, what's happened? And then he called and said, congratulations, you've won. And it was just such a relief. And then he sat there and did all the paperwork. We were away. We transferred the money. He sorted it all out. And it was just the fact that, sorry, I could go on. Do you want to stop?
But, no, that's fine. Keep going. Okay.
It was everything. It was literally everything. It was going to an auction and having a bodyguard, right? Like as soon as those agents, they all know your buyer's agent, right? So as soon as you walk in with a buyer's agent, they go, Chris is serious, right? There's no games. They know you've got a bodyguard who knows exactly all the games, everything like that. So they're advocating for you alone. So you've got this backup. I remember he walked around and go, like, so while you're looking going, oh, this could be a lovely home, smell that candle, right? He's like beyond that candle. He's looking and going, there's water damage here. And he'd walk over and step on and go, that's loose. Yeah. And he'd go, that seems like it's got termites. Right. And so then we pay for a pest inspection, and he would go there and go, I think there's pest. They spot everything, right? I'm not telling you anything, you know it. But it was just everything. And even future, he would say, careful, this might block your view in the future, or that might impede on the sale in the future. And it was just all like you go in and you think you know what you're doing, and you just don't. You know about 5 of the 50 things that they're checking.
Yes. So buyer's agents go in with eagle eyes. And they give you peace of mind.
It is. And look, it is a bit frustrating because you're going, this is the perfect home. and they'll go, sewage smell, but you're thankful. You're 100% thankful because they pick up. They see all these things.
We trained. As a buyer's agent myself,
yes.
I know. I've seen hundreds of thousands of properties, so I know exactly what to spot straight away.
And what do you usually spot?
We would spot exactly what you're talking about now. We go in, we look beyond the emotion. Mm-hmm. Of course, you've got to go in and have a look and notice that it looks beautiful and things like that, but we look beyond that. So how do you go from starting a business in a garage to being one of the most awarded, top-performing sales agents and agencies in the country?
Look, sometimes I pinch myself at what we've all done in the last 8 years, 9 years since we opened Ray White Wahroonga. But the thing I've always held very close to me is, I guess, the motto that's all about getting the right people. We have a no dickheads policy within our business, and so getting the right people was so important. So along the way, we targeted the right people with that would fit into the culture, people that I enjoyed spending time with, people that were good people, inherently good people. Some agents that were working in other businesses that weren't doing as well as what I thought they could be doing, and we were able to get them across. And some of the people within the business now were agents who were writing 200, 300,000. Now they're writing well over $1 million a year. And that's just putting them in an environment surrounded by lots of good people doing really good things.
Yeah. So culture, good people, and having fun along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer of having fun and believing in people. I think it's very important. Some people get lost along the way. How do you define success?
Success to me isn't necessarily a financial thing or anything like that. It's achieving whatever goals you set yourself. And everyone's goals are different. We've got people within the business who are wanting to, it's all about writing more business. We've got people who want to get the work-life balance. We've got people that are actually wanting to do less than what they're doing so they can spend more time at home or with kids, and we support everyone's individual goals. So what makes somebody successful is very different to what might make another person successful. So it's really not trying to fit everyone in the same box. And if you can find out truly what somebody wants to achieve and tap into that, that's where you really get success, I think.
Culture is so important, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. So how do you evolve the culture?
Well, we've got some values within our business all around respect, all about having fun, but also being the best person you could possibly be, and getting and hitting the goals you want to hit. So if you have some strict values and that everybody sort of buys into, and they're not just values that we came up with, that as a business we sort of spent a long time working out what was important to everybody. So if everything comes back to those three key values, then ultimately I think the people will buy into it and you can build a culture around it.
Yeah. Have you had any mentors along the way that have stood out and made them mark on you?
Yeah, look, there's been plenty. I've been asked that a bit. There's probably not one person in particular, but I feel like I've gotten a lot from so many different people over the years. You've got some amazing business leaders within our industry. Like when I was a younger person, at 18 years old, I remember going and listening to John McGrath speak, and I was enamored with, his passion for the industry and the way he thought bigger than everyone else did at the time. So he was always trying to be better and change things, and really was thinking outside the square, which I loved. And I'll never forget that energy that he had around that. And then there's been some wonderful trainers over the years that I've come into contact with that you learn a lot, but probably more it's the personal relationships on one-to-one within people within the business, people that I've been close to, my parents. I learn a lot from everyone that I try and meet, and always try and find people doing better than what I'm doing so I can then learn from them. Even lots of business owners, especially within the Ray White Group, a lot of principals from other areas that I spend a lot of time with, and just understanding how they run their businesses. So there's been a huge amount of big influences in my life.
How did you first get started in the real estate arena?
I think it does stem back to the fact that I did live in different countries, and because of that I helped people when they came into the country, and therefore when I came back to Australia it was natural for me to work in relocations and help expats as they come to Sydney and try and work out where are they going to live and help them source properties, etc. Therefore, that's how I started in real estate, looking for rentals.
Okay. And what inspired your transition from relocations to being a buyer's agent?
I had a very, very savvy client. He did his research on the Sydney property market, and instead of having the company pay his rent, he asked them to pay his mortgage. Therefore, he asked me to help him buy a property rather than rent a property. It was while I was helping him buy the property, guiding him through, helping him through all the negotiations, that I felt this buzz of achievement. And it was from that moment on that I thought, that's it. There's no turning back. I'm going to be a buyer's agent. I'm going to help people buy their property.
So you got a taste for it from that first experience?
I did.
In fact, there have been numerous occasions where you've started with one family member and you've bought multiple properties for the rest of the family and friends.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that you have brought to the table, besides your dedication and your knowledge, that draws more than one family member to you?
I think being lighthearted about it, making the journey fun instead of oppressive and emotional. And each person was different there. So understanding their differences between the other family members, what they needed, and just being empathetic, I think. But mostly I think just making it fun.
Yes. Fun is the key to it.
Let's not make it so boring and emotional. Let's enjoy the journey.
I know that you are a lot of fun to work with. You're experienced, you're professional, you understand the market exceptionally well. What would your advice be to buyers looking to navigate the property market at the moment?
First thing, make sure you have your finances ready. Do not go shopping unless you know how much you have to spend, because it's going to lead to heartbreak, for sure. Secondly, don't try and time the market. The best time to buy is when you're ready and when an opportunity presents itself. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was about capital growth and investment. And the guest speaker said something that really resonated with me. He said, the best time to buy was yesterday. The second best time is today. So definitely do your research. If you've found a property that you like, make sure you know more or less what you should be paying for it. Have a look at all the past sales. Compare that property. Is the floor plan better? What's your indoor-outdoor flow? Is it better light? Are the rooms bigger, smaller? What's the position of the house on the block? Is it a steep block, flat block, aspect? All these things will help you determine what you should pay for the property. And then don't skip the due diligence. Make sure you read thoroughly the building and pest inspection or the strata report. If there isn't one, commission it. Make sure you get one. If the one you've been given by the real estate agent is a little light on information, get your own. Very important. If you're moving to an area that you're not 100% familiar with, have a look at any new infrastructure that could impact the property. Look at the flight paths if you're going to the inner west, because if you've never lived in the inner west and you find yourself under the flight path, it could be very interesting living. And go to the council website. Have a look at any DAs that may impact your property. Super important. And also set your limit and stick to it. You've set that limit for a reason. Be a little bit flexible, because that can make the difference between buying a property or not. And the way to set your limit is to look at it objectively. So you've done your research, you know how much more or less you should be paying for the property. Subjectively, have a think. How many properties have had that emotional pull for you? Has it been many, or has it been the first one in 6 months? And then serviceability. Servicing the loan is important, but it's also important to be able to live. You know, have that holiday. Go out to dinner without feeling guilty because you can't pay the loan.
Brilliant tips. And of course, engage a buyer's agent.
Oh, absolutely. Forgot that one.
What would your advice or tips be to anyone looking to buy at an auction besides engaging with a buyer's agent?
I think the number one thing is preparation, is be prepared. There's things that you need to do, A, to be ready, and then in order to take action on the day. So there's some obvious things that have to happen in preparation to be ready for auction day. Obviously, you need to have your finance approved and in place. You need to have either looked at the contract or have had a solicitor look at the contract. It's not the end of the world if you haven't, but they're great things to do. If you do want changes to the contract, get those organised beforehand. One thing I definitely don't recommend is turning up on auction day and asking for changes on auction day. Vendors are very nervous and jumpy on auction day very often, so I think you often find that you don't get a positive result when you turn up 2 minutes before the auction and say, we want this term changed. Very often the vendors just go, no, too hard, don't want to know about it. So if you've got changes that you want to a contract, get those prepared in advance. Probably the big ticket item, and it's one that very few people do that they really should be doing, is come with a strategy and think about a bidding strategy for auction day. I can't tell you, every auction I call for an opening bid, and then you watch the husband and the wife turn to each other and look at each other as if to say, well, what are we going to do now? They haven't even thought about what they're going to do next. And, of course, then everyone stands there like a stunned mullet. A buyer's agent puts their hand straight up and has a clear figure at which they're going to start the bidding at because they've thought about what they're going to do. So it sort of doesn't make sense to me that buyers turn up and expect that they're going to magically buy the property without having a plan. Have a plan. Think about a bidding strategy. Think about what an opening bid might look like for you and what you feel comfortable with as an opening bid. Think about what your budget is. Think about how you want to bid. Do you want to bid quickly and confidently to try and intimidate the competition? Do you want to bid slowly to try and draw the competition out and see how many people there are? So all of these things, if you think about and you plan, they're things that can help you in advance. I think that obviously feeds into the number one thing that you have to do on auction day is bid. I think that too many bidders stand there and wait and hope that by not bidding, somehow they're magically going to buy the property, and you simply can't buy the property without making an offer. It's like any transaction. There has to be an offer. Yes. Even if it's not an auction, it's just a negotiation situation, you still have to start with an offer. There's no asking price. There's not an asking price situation, so it's no good waiting for the auctioneer or for the agent to do something. Yeah. You have to initiate that. So I think, again, getting in the mindset of being prepared to and ready to take action on auction day are probably the best preparations that people can have to get themselves ready to buy something.
Those are excellent tips. So talking about vendors being nervous, because it is nerve-wracking for a vendor, what would your advice be to vendors looking to sell at auction? And also when they're thinking about the reserve price, what should they be thinking?
Yeah, vendors are naturally nervous coming up to an auction. It's a big transaction. It's usually their largest asset. So for vendors, the exercises are often around working out what they're comfortable with on price. Now, we find that most vendors obviously have a hope price, something that they're really wanting to achieve. Somewhere below that, there might be realistic prices that they might be having as fallback positions that they might be willing to take. So I think for vendors, certainly working through that in a mental state before the auction is a great idea. First and foremost, vendors need to listen to the advice of their agents. I think the biggest penalty is for vendors who don't listen to their agents. Yeah. Agents are telling them this is the feedback, this is the likely outcomes on Saturday, and they've got their head in the clouds saying, no, but it's got to be worth this because Marjorie's down the street sold for this much and mine is a much, much better home than that. This kind of unrealistic thinking and not listening to your agent, who is your professional appointed advisor, is really, really dangerous. And it's those vendors that often end up getting punished on auction day because they're not taking the advice of the agent. So listen to the agent's advice. They're giving you feedback about what the buyers are saying about the property and how much the buyers are willing to spend on the property. That's really, really paramount. When it comes to setting a reserve, look, you can have your hope price. That's okay. And I don't even mind if the reserve is set at the hope price. It's just got to be that you need to have worked mentally through what are the likely outcomes, what are the buyers likely to spend, and what am I willing to take? So an exercise that I'll get vendors to do coming into auction day, if I have a chance to speak to them before auction day, is to say, okay, what would you really like for the home? All right, we would love to get at 1.8. Great. Now, if bidding gets to 1.75 and it stops and we're not able to get anything more from the bidders, what would you do at that point? And they don't have to tell me, but they need to answer the question for themselves and then go, okay, what if bidding gets to 1.7 and it stops and that's all we can get? What would you do at that point? So effectively get a vendor to work backwards in their mind from what they'd really like to achieve to the point where they go, you know what, at this level, we just won't sell the property. And I think that's a great preparation for auction day because then you've got a framework for decision making and you're not caught in the eye of the storm in the moment in terms of what happens on the auction floor. You've got some parameters, you've thought about it. And I think that's something that really helps you move forward and helps you have a kind of, just a framework to make those decisions when it comes up.
So you went from being a successful selling agent to a very professional principal. Mm-hmm. What were some of the challenges along the way or something that you learned that you want to share with the listeners?
I think how important it is to master yourself before you lead others. There's a really good book by Jocko Willink called The Dichotomy of Leadership, which I read.
Do you want to say that again?
The Dichotomy of Leadership.
Yeah,
by Jocko Willink.
Mm-hmm.
He's an ex-SAS guy in America. It's just a really good book. He's got a bunch of books out there. But when we started the business and I knew what it was going to be, I knew that we were going to have 20, 30 staff. I knew that we were going to be, the pinnacle brand in Canberra, and that was the goal. And I knew what was going to be required of me. And I knew I had it in me, but I had to be aware that I need to polish up on that. And I had to learn to lead, and I had to learn to be, you know, that's the dichotomy of leadership. You have to be soft, you have to be hard, you have to be firm, you have to be fair. You have to, you know, these things that I think the difference between, and a lot of real estate agents they want to own the office, but they don't want the responsibility of the people. These people have mortgages, they have families, they have kids, they have goals, they have wives, they have this, they have that. So I think you have to be willing to bear the brunt of it all. You have to be willing to work till 2 a.m. in the morning. You have to be willing to pay before you eat. You have to be willing to sacrifice before you take. And I think, you know, the biggest lesson is, and that's where all the growth happens, you know, because it doesn't happen, the growth doesn't happen when your bank account grows. The growth happens when you go through shit. And when you go through shit and you learn the lessons and you have to adapt and you have to evolve, you will get the lesson out of it. But if your goal is true and your why is true and you never deviate from your plan, you're always going to get hit with grenades. You're always going to come up against obstacles every day, every hour. But you have to have a stoic perspective. I'm really big on stoicism. I'm reading a really good book at the moment called Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday, if anyone wants to read it. But you really have to be stoic, I feel, because you have to have an introspective perspective on yourself, but you also have to a lineal and a zoomed out view of your situation when you have a lot of people that you care for, because the direction of the business still needs to maintain the same trajectory, but you're driving it. So if you're not driving yourself well, the business isn't going to work well. And I think the difference when you're an agent, you're just worrying about, if you're my client, I'm just worrying about you and me and my wife and my kids and whatever other clients that I have. And that's it. It's really easy. And my dog or whatever. But when you make that transition to whatever level, where it doesn't matter if you've got the amount of staff that I do, or if you've got 2 or 3 or 4, the concept is the same. And the better that you have a handle on what you're actually creating and what you're driving, the better culture you can create. Because the culture starts at the front, it starts with the leader. Bad leader, bad culture, bad business, not fun. And I think that's the big lesson, is just, and being able to just take a breath, step back, look at it for what it is. You've got to let things roll off you.
Yes.
You know, you can't be granular in problems that, you know, can take the same amount of energy as a big problem.
So don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
And have a very thick skin.
Have a very thick skin, you know, but have a very clear vision about where you're going.
Yes, that's very important. And so how did you start your own business?
So similar, it sort of started with one of my business partners, Joshua Morrissey from Hive Property.
Yeah, we love Josh.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
He's great.
He had referred a few of his customers to me to organise finance. And then he just gave me a call one day, wanted to have a bit of a coffee catch-up. I thought it was to talk about a client or two. And it turns out that he was pretty happy with a lot of the client feedback that he'd gotten from people he'd referred to me. And he wanted to have a chat about, would I be interested in starting a brokerage? Because he was sick of referring people to other brokers and sort of not getting a great service. And, he just wanted somewhere where he could trust. And, that's where it started from there in 2021.
Brilliant story. So referrals is always the best way to get business, and in your case, to start a business.
Yes.
So you never know, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, to always have exceptional customer service and make sure you're doing the right thing by people.
Yeah, correct. I always sort of say just try and impress everyone always. Never turn off, because you never know. Like, you could be working at a hardware store or a gas station and the right customer could come in, and if you're impressive enough, then they'll give you an opportunity.
That's right. You never know what can happen.
Yeah.
What are the banks looking for at the moment when approving a loan? And do you still need to have a 3% buffer to make sure you can service the loan?
Well, essentially what they're looking at now, which is the biggest change over the last 12 to 24 months, is a clean credit file. So previously, what they brought in was something called open data, where every single loan facility you've got, your monthly repayments get listed on your credit file now. So if you're late on one repayment by about 4 to 6 weeks, it will actually get listed on your credit file, and it's there for 18 to 24 months.
So do you want to give some examples of where people could innocently be late on a payment?
It's essentially things like not setting up direct debits. So that's the biggest one that I see, is people where it's just, I had a credit card that I barely use, the annual fee came out and I didn't have a direct debit set up. So it was just a mishap essentially. Like they had money in the bank, but it was just they forgot to make the payment. So the biggest thing I always advise my clients, especially if they've got a lot of loan facilities, is direct debits are your best friend. It just happens. As long as the money's in the account, the loan will get paid.
Yeah, and it's so easy because you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
It gives you more time to do other things.
Yep, you spend a couple of hours setting it up and then it's done.
And how long does it take to get pre-approval?
Anywhere from essentially 3 to 7 business days, depending on the lender.
And is that for 3 months, the approval?
Yes. So most pre-approvals will have an initial period of 3 months. And then if you're still looking and you haven't quite found a property at that stage, if you just provide a couple of updated pay slips to your broker or the bank, they'll extend it for another 3 months.
Okay, so it's not that difficult once it expires, then it's pretty simple.
Yeah, some people in the industry will put a little bit of pressure on you to try and get you to buy something because obviously they've got an invested interest, but I wouldn't feel too much pressure to buy in that first 3 months. Take your time. As long as you don't think your financial situation is going to change, take your time, get an extension. You've got plenty of time.
Excellent. So what's the benefit of using a broker as opposed to going directly to the bank? I mean, a lot of people say they've had a relationship with the bank for the last 10 or 15 years. They feel comfortable, even though the bank managers change all the time. Yeah. What would you say to people that are looking to get finance?
The biggest thing would be time saving, I would say. So you're not necessarily going to get a better deal at a broker compared to a bank. You're going to get the same interest rate, essentially. Brokers don't have a better interest rate. It's more that ability to compare between multiple lenders, meaning you're not getting home from work and sitting there with your partner on your laptop and trying to figure out, is that bank going to give me a better rate than that bank? But you might not know that the bank with the best rate, you might not be a suitable customer for them, so you've wasted some time. That's the biggest advantage, is just not having to deal with researching.
And so many people are time poor today, so yes. It's important that we maximise on having the right time to do the things we love as opposed to what we have to do.
Correct.
What do you think have been the biggest changes in Canberra over the last 6 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot more diversification in Canberra now. It's got people from all over the world that have moved there, and there's lots of different precincts. And anywhere you live in Canberra now, there's a great community environment to that area of Canberra.
Yes, it's a multicultural city.
It really is, yeah.
What's driving the growth here? I know you just mentioned overseas, international people. What do you think is driving growth besides immigration?
Yeah, I think it's just a really desirable place to live. Great place to bring up a family. A lot of people move to Canberra to grow their family and put their kids through school. It's a really safe place to live. And so it's really appealing as an area to live. It's out of the hustle and bustle of like one of the major cities like Sydney and Melbourne, where you might be in traffic for hours on end every day. And in Canberra, you really can get from one end to the other and anywhere within 30 minutes. And I think that's really appealing to people to live there.
So you have over 18 years experience building your own investment property portfolio. Mm-hmm. What do you feel are the key lessons that you've learned, and how does that make you a better buyer's agent?
Yeah, I think if I could go back and tell myself when I first started and bought my first property to use a professional to help me purchase that property, I would definitely go and do it. I go to auctions now in Canberra, and often I just stand there wondering why more people aren't using a professional to assist them. Often people are paying more than they need to for a property, and that's what happened to me when I purchased my first property, and I'm happy to share that. And it was tens of thousands of dollars that I could have saved if I had a professional on my side. And I think that it's just a learning process. So then when I purchased my next property, you learn more about the last one. And gradually I started to realise that I had a real knack of the knowledge into purchasing property. And a lot of people would ask me about it. And I realised I think I know more than what I might think I know. And once I explored that a little bit more, I was able to realise, I'm going to go into this and help people.
So through your own experience, firstly, embarking on the journey yourself, not knowing much, you actually have acquired a lot of knowledge and expertise, which is now given you the skill set to help a lot of other buyers. And you're quite right that most people need help. It doesn't matter whether you're a first home buyer or you're a seasoned investor, having a buyer's agent by your side does give you an advantage and saves you money.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's why we're here now.
Yes, exactly. So what are you seeing on the ground? What types of buyers are you meeting? Are they first home buyers? Are they upsizers, downsizers, investors, interstate, overseas?
Yeah, I guess it's a mixture of all those things. I mean, at the moment we're helping a client that's an interstate couple that is relocating. But when I'm going through the open homes of late, there's a lot of first home buyers and people looking to upsize. The properties that seem to be really popular are the ones that are turnkey properties ready to move in. Yeah. They've been renovated, they're ready to go. You just got to walk in and start enjoying life. And those properties seem to have a large amount of interest. And then the properties that need a little bit of work, it really does start to drop off, is what I'm seeing on the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's the case across Australia. Most people are looking for an easy route into their new property, so they just want to walk in and enjoy it. However, we still encounter lots of buyers that like the thrill of doing up a property and putting their own stamp on it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think with the increased costs to do renovations, that's having an impact, and the interest rates obviously are having an impact on people's decisions. But there are some people out there that still love to do it on their own.